Okay, so we're recording. So just to orient us, ladies and gentlemen, today is Wednesday, January 26th. This is our second class meeting for business math, and we're working on our first homework assignment. So what I have on my screen is and once we talked, a couple of you came and visited with me last week, which I really appreciated, but you do not have to buy the you don't have to buy the version of the textbook that is on Cengage, but hang on a second. This is I'm using Cengage just because it's easier for me to project than it would be to just point at the book, I guess. So anyway, but if you have a hard copy of the book, you don't have to have Cengage. It's just your choice. And it turns out that the electronic copy is quite a bit more expensive. So if you have the hard copy, that's fine. So I recorded a lecture for you on our Moodle page that talked a little bit about fractions, which is the content for chapter 1. And that's the homework assignment that's due this coming Friday in 2 days. So you do the bottom line and you do the end of the chapter and then turn it in through Moodle. That's called, the first one's called the bottom line. And then and then the review problems. So you do not have to do any of the assignments unless you find that you are having trouble with the material. Okay. So as far as chapter 1 goes, fractions, mixed numbers, conversions, that may be a review for some of you. Do you guys have any questions about that material? No? Okay, easy to get along with. So what we'll do then is we'll go ahead and take a look at chapter 2, which is decimals. So decimals, once again, for many of you, this may be a review, but decimals are just another way of expressing partial fractions or partial numbers that are not exactly equal to a whole number or could be equal to a whole number. But basically, the learning objectives are listed here. That you can read decimal numbers, round decimal numbers, add, subtract, multiply, divide, and then to approximate products, which are multiplications and quotients. So the thing about decimals is that when you read them, if you think about it, when you start with a number that's part whole number 3.006, the way that our number system is set up is that everything basically gets smaller as you move to the right. So like for the number 3, this is the place value system. If you have a number like this, everything kind of centers at the decimal. Everything this way is greater, that is 1 or greater. Everything this way is less than 1. So this is the ones, place, tens, hundreds, and then going back, this is tenths, hundredths, thousandths, which can also be expressed as 0.1, 0.01, 0.001. Okay. Now, in my opinion, decimals are a little bit easier to work with because they work more like whole numbers in terms of the operations with them. But basically, if you add or subtract decimals, giving you the short lecture in case this is unfamiliar, to add or subtract decimals, you just line up the decimal point. And so if you have uneven numbers like this, in other words, numbers that have not the same number of digits to the left, you just line up the decimal place and then add in columns. So that'd be 1, 0, 0, 1, 3. Okay. So, and the same with subtraction. Of course, this would be a negative number. If I were subtracting, I would have to take that into account as well. But if you're multiplying or dividing, you need to work with the decimal place a little bit differently. So if you have two numbers such as 3.2 times 6.71, you multiply these as though they were whole numbers, and then you put the decimal place, you count the total number of decimal places. So this would be 3. So if I were to do this, which you can do this on your calculator, you do not have to do this longhand, but just for the sake of argument, I'll go ahead and do that. So you go ahead and do it just like it was 32 times 671. So that'd be 7 times 3 is 21, 22, 7 times, wait, I did that, sorry. See, I can't talk and do it at the same time. 1, 32, 7, you invert, you put a 0 here, and then 7 times 2 is 14. carry the 1, 7 times 3 is 21, 22, and you invert another, go in one more space. 6 times 2 is 12, carry the 1, 18, 19. So then you add those in a column, 2, 7, 4, 1, 2, and then you count decimal places. There's 3 decimal places, and so you put the decimal in the right place. Now, another way to think about this is if you don't know where the decimal place goes, you can estimate this by saying, if you had, this number's about 3 and this number's about 6, right? So that means 6 times 3 is 18. You'd expect the answer to be about 18, right? So in other words, if you came up with an answer that was 21, you go, yeah, that's in the ballpark. It's kind of the same number. But if you had 214 or 0.214, you'd say that doesn't make any sense because 3 times 6 is nowhere near that number. Okay, so you can just use a little quick estimate to make sure that you're in the ballpark. If you do end up doing long division, the method is, first of all, my favorite method, use your calculator, right? But if you were going to divide numbers such as 6.71 divided by 3.2, and you're doing that longhand, what you have to do is to take the number you're dividing by, the divisor, and move the decimal place to make it a whole number. So if this is 33.2, you move it to 3.2. If you move this number, this decimal by 1, you have to move this decimal by 1, because what you're basically doing then is multiplying both of them by 10 and it will divide out again. So, but this has to be a whole number. You place the decimal based on that. And you go 32 into 67. That goes twice. That's 64. 3, 1, 3. That doesn't go into that at all. So that's 0, 31. So you have, and then you bring down another thing and you put that there. So the answer is approximately 2.09. So the next thing is rounding decimals. If you have something like this, 3.269, for example, that's too hard. Let's start with an easier one, okay? If you start with something like this, 3.26, then I need to stop sharing my screen while I'm doing this. See if the L camera is going to find me. Okay, if you have something like this, and they say round it to tenths, okay, remember this is this is ones, this is tenths. That means they want to know what the closest is to this. If this number is 0 through 5, you do not round it up. If it's 6 through 9, you round it up. So in other words, this number would round, means approximately, to 3.3. If the number were 3.21, that just stays about 3.2. Okay, so the way that you decide when you round an answer or approximate an answer is to find the place that you're rounding to, go 1 digit beyond and look at that digit and decide if it's 0 through 5 or 6 through 9. Okay, so that's just the process for rounding decimals. So when we take a look at all of those things, we can see that we have some techniques to do. Some of these are, or maybe all of them are familiar depending on where you are with math. But essentially, that's the whole deal, all right? So do you guys have any questions about chapter 3? Okay, the material is going to become more intense as we go on, but right now we're sort of working on just getting the process down for getting the class done. And everybody's going to be at different places. So if this is new to you, that's terrific. And it's not a problem at all. If it's not new to you, hallelujah, you get a kind of a couple of easy weeks. So anyway, so for this week, like we said, the homework is due on Friday the 28th. That would be over fractions. The following week, next Friday, we're going to have a homework over decimals. So what we've talked about today will we actually do next Friday. Do you guys have any questions about submitting through Moodle or anything about the process for doing that?
We just take pictures like we did.
Perfect. Yes, you can take pictures. You can use like, there's a program called Office Lens that you can put on your phone that you can scan. It'll scan in as a PDF, but whatever like that, anything like that you can do. I do prefer your homework in one file. So like if you have pictures, if you'll put it into a Word document or a PDF or something like that, or just have it in one file instead of just pages and pages. And do make sure that you put your name at the top of every page. Okay. Yes, question.
So is it due at 8 in the morning or midnight on Friday?
It's due at midnight.
Okay.
Yes.
I was just curious. Sometimes it's 8, sometimes it's midnight.
Right. And the other thing, just so that you know, I don't really take off credit if it's late. So I mean, you'll have a due date and it will tell you it's late. But if you get it in the vicinity of Friday at midnight, like if you're, you know, if you're up late or if you have something going on and you don't get it in until Saturday morning, you will not lose credit. So, yeah, the schedule, I kind of started thinking about this during COVID a little bit when I realized everybody's schedules are just kind of nuts, you know. Started being a lot more lax about the exact time that something goes in. So you'll never, and if you do, like if you try to submit something and it tells you you can't because it's late, send me an email because that's a mistake on my part. That just means I haven't turned off all the switches to make that stop. All right, good question. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am, Rachel.
I haven't gotten my book quite yet.
Mhm.
It should be in today, but if it's not in today, is it okay, like, if I can, like, turn it in on Saturday?
Oh, yes,
Okay.
yeah, that'll be fine. If it doesn't come by Saturday, we'll start getting concerned,
Okay.
but yeah, you'll be just fine.
Thank you.
So, yeah. Anyone else? See how easy that was? Okay, so what I'm gonna do today, I'm gonna turn off the recording. This is it for the lecture. If you wanna stay here and work, I can help you. If you wanna go get a cup of coffee, you can do that. But I'll be here if anybody wishes to stay and work on their stuff or ask any questions, and we'll go from there. And otherwise, I'll put this lecture up. I don't know if I'll put another lecture up this week or not, because we kind of covered all the material. It's gonna get more intense as we go on, but we wanna make sure that everybody has this good foundation of the basics first. So, we've got those two. I may not put up another lecture, but anytime you have questions, don't ever hesitate to get a hold of me. I'll have my phone number, give me a text, and we'll take care of it, okay? All right, so if you leave, have a great day. We'll talk to you later.